Hey YouTube, JW. Get another edition of Retro Knives for you today, and it's one that I'm sure that pretty much everybody is going to be familiar with, and it is one of my personal favorites. Not only because it was my first type of knife, and still one of my favorites, but it's just a great knife. Even to this day. So it's a retro design, but it's still, very popular today, unlike a lot of the knives that I feature in this series. And I'm going to kind of start with some older ones and go to some newer ones that I have. This is my first knife that I ever owned. I got it used from my stepbrother back in the 80s, and it's not a Swiss Army knife, but it's a Swiss style knife. So I'm going to name this video Swiss style knives, because even though Victorinox is the real Swiss Army knife, and I don't even think the Swiss Army uses them, but it's Swiss style knives. So this is a made in Japan. This is probably from the 70s. You see there's some oil on there. It's in pretty rough shape, and but it's old. I mean, it's been beat up and it's been used, and I've had this thing in the dirt and the mud, and it sat outside, and I tried to clean it up, but that's about as good as I can do with it. So you can imagine how bad it looked. Pretty much what you would expect from a Swiss style knife. But this was my first knife, and Swiss style knives were really my first type of knife that I really liked. That and Bowie knives, which will be in another video for another day. This is a Victorinox. This is an Officer Susi. Is that how they pronounce? I don't know how they pronounce that. Thing to focus there. This is not in production anymore, but this would be, I guess, the equivalent of the Huntsman today, maybe. I got this in probably about 90, 91. Great knife. You can see it's a little beat up, but I was a kid, and I carried it everywhere. I took it to school. Might get arrested for that today. Next up, we're going to go with another one that I got in the same time frame that is not a Victorinox. It's a Diamond Edge brand. It's an inox stainless knife. It was featured in my inox series. Diamond Edge made some really good knives, and they kind of are known for this wood grain pattern. As you can see from the wear on this knife, it has been carried quite a bit by me, and I still really like this knife, and it's a really good knife. A lot of good blades on this knife. I like how it's set up, and this is an Imperial knife. Late 80s, early 90s. Next up, we're going to go with kind of a cheaper one that I picked up not too long ago. It's just kind of what they make today. This is a Chinese example. It's just got camo handle scales. This is a Chinese model, and really, it's not that bad. This is a Fury. Actually, it's pretty tight. It's not that bad. Next up, we're going to go with one of my personal favorites in the Victorinox. I don't have any waggers or weggers. I've just got Victorinoxes, but this is the Rucksack. And it has a locking blade on it. Most of them are just slip joint. But this is the locking button. You push down to close. And I really like this knife. I like what it's got. I think this is the, if I had to pick one to carry, I'd say it would either be this, which would be the Huntsman now today, or the Rucksack. I like the Rucksack. I like what it's got. It's got the corkscrew, the locking blade, really nice saw, a screwdriver can opener, and then another screwdriver, bottle opener, toothpick, tweezers. You know, I really like this. I bought this used, but it looks like it had been carried quite a bit, but not used so much. Got a really good deal on it. And this is my latest one I picked up, cheap, like brand new. It's the Spartan Woodland SD camo, as they call it. This is a great little knife too. It's got the corkscrew, basically the same as the Rucksack there. This one says Officer Suse on there as well. I'm not a big buff of Swiss style knives, so when I look at the two stamps here, the only difference that I see and is on the stamp here is this one has the emblem on it, and this one says Rostray. That's how you can really tell how a lot of times easily how old a knife is, or if it's from, you know, not really that old necessarily, but you know, from the 80s, 90s. I'm not talking about 50, 60 years old, but if a knife says Rostray on it or inox instead of stainless steel, I don't know of any new knives that are not that say Rostray on the blade still. So if you see that, you've got something a little bit older, and that's really the only difference in the stamps. I don't know how old this knife is. It looks pretty new. Like for example, this Swiss style knife just says patented on here. Swiss made stainless Victorinox. So before I ramble on too long, I'm going to end this one, but get them all here. This is definitely a classic retro knife design. I appreciate you guys watching and subbing to my channel, and follow me on Google Plus, and check out my Google Plus. I've got my own community, JW's Bullets and Blades, same as my channel, and I do a lot of stuff. I do news, all kinds of stuff. People are starting to post, you know, I've got a lot of people from overseas that are posting some French-made knives and some Russian-made. It's really cool. So interesting to see that type of stuff. So check out my Google Plus community, and I appreciate you guys watching. It's another installation of retro knives.